Hello, hello. This is the Downsizing Diva, and I am here with Mrs. Mindy Peterson. Hi, Mindy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I am great. I am so excited that you agreed to interview with me today. One of the things that attracted me to your channel was all the cooking you do. And
Mhm.
you don't really see that a lot. You see people make videos like what they eat in a day. They may be
Mhm.
sporadic, unless they're vlogging, they might include that. But I mean, you have some like recipes and
Mhm.
just, like you're making meals.
I like to eat. What can I say?
Yes, and I was excited about that. And then I reached out to you because you have on your YouTube Shorts, I don't think it's on TikTok because I'm not on TikTok, but I saw it on
Mhm.
YouTube Shorts. You had a meal and you had everything mapped out what you were eating for the day
Mhm.
with a calorie count, and I count calories. So I thought I'm going to reach out to her and see if I can use this in my video. And then you said yes, and then I thought, I wonder if she would interview with me because that's one
Yeah.
of the things that I love is biographies, the and autobiographies. So I love reading about people and their their road to success. And so I
Mhm.
always say success leaves footprints. And so I think you're very successful at what you're doing, and I love your channel. And I just wanted to talk to you about your journey. Another thing too, before we get started, is people always
Mhm.
ask me because I just recently told family and friends that I'm on this GLP-1 medication, mounjaro,
Mhm.
and people always ask, like, what are you going to do in the long term? And you
Mhm.
lose all this weight, and then how are you going to maintain it, or how do you know that you're going to be, alive in 3 years taking this
Right.
medication, or 5 years? And so you are someone that has been taking it for 3 years.
Mhm.
Have been on a GLP-1. So I thought, what a perfect person to talk to because you're alive, you're well, you're
I
looking good.
am.
We just want to hear about your journey. You've had a roller coaster ride, it sounds like, from your,
Yeah.
your piano. And so I just want you to share that with us. So can you start off by just introducing yourself and telling us about yourself?
Yeah, yeah. My name is Mindy, and I just turned 45 years old this year, and I started taking wegovy in October of 2021. In fact, this last Friday was my 3-year anniversary. And I started because at 365 pounds, I was pretty much the heaviest I had ever been. And I, it was, I had tried everything. Like every fat girl will tell you, like I've been on every diet there ever is and then some. I had tried keto. I mean carnivore wasn't popular back then, so I guess I never tried carnivore, but I'm not somebody that's going to live without vegetables at least. So I tried low carb. I was on HCG for a while, which is a whole other dysfunctional. If you're interested in getting into that, you can look it up, but it's awful. And I did Herbalife, I did everything.
Mhm.
And things would work for a little while and then they wouldn't, until I ran out of the self-control to force myself to eat a way that wasn't sustainable. And in October of 2021, I was starting to look into weight loss surgery, which terrified me because I knew people that had had horrible experiences. A friend of mine's mom died after having gastric bypass surgery back in the 90s. And it was just scary. And when I started reading about GLPs and I went to my doctor and talked to her about Wegovy, she had been prescribing Ozempic for years, both on label for diabetes treatment and off label for weight loss. So she was all for it. She's like, I will try it if you're willing to make the changes that you need to make to lose the weight, because it's not going to lose the weight for you. And so I started thinking about it, and I really wanted to see people who were giving firsthand accounts of their experience on the medicines. And the only thing that I could find were people talking about Ozempic. So all of those people had diabetes. I didn't have diabetes. And it wasn't that I didn't trust that the meds wouldn't work, but I just wanted to know from somebody that was using them purely from a weight loss standpoint, like how that was working for them, how they felt about it, what the side effects were. And I just couldn't find anybody out there. And I'm like, well, surely I'm not the only one who's wondering what people's journey is like on these medications. So that was when I decided that I was going to kind of document my journey on these medications. And I thankfully had access to the very first wegovy coupon, which gave me 6 refills for $25 a month, even though my insurance didn't cover it. And at the end of that 6 months, I switched to a semaglutide compound and I did a rapid dissolve tablet, and it didn't work. It didn't work at all. I found out later.
Can I stop you? Was that Ribelsis? Because I don't
No. It was
dissolve.
it was an actual compound, but it was just
Okay.
a semaglutide compound.
Okay.
And it was from a compounding pharmacy, a local compounding pharmacy in Austin, Texas. And they had overpressed the tablet, and it didn't work. And after I had switched doctors, because I switched doctors a few times throughout this whole process before I found the doctor that I now love and will never leave if I can help it. And she told me that, oral GLPs, too much of them get destroyed in your digestive system for them to really work as effectively as the injection. I know that they're developing some new oral GLP-1s that apparently have been a lot more successful, but Ribelsis is the very first oral GLP, and that was from Novo Nordisk, and it is a semaglutide, but it's a daily. You have to take it every single day. The rapid dissolve tablet that I took that was a semaglutide was a once weekly, and it was a rapid dissolve under the tongue. And it just, like I said, it just didn't work like at all.
Now, did you lose any weight taking that?
Very little.
Okay.
And I was still doing everything that I had done on Wegovy. Granted, I was already 6 months in, and I had lost 65 pounds already on the Wegovy at 6 months. It was a little less than 6 months because it was 6 refills and they're 4 weeks each. So, at that point, like, I was already kind of starting to reach that period of where I was letting myself go a little more lax than maybe I should on the weekend, and, kind of starting to backslide into some behaviors. And then I went into a depression when the rapid dissolve tablet wasn't working as well as the Wegovy had.
Well,
And then
let me stop you there because I remember watching one of your videos and you said you lost 65 pounds. You have some great pictures up too in 6 months. So you went from that success to not being able to continue, which just mentally, I'm sure that
yeah,
was a mental blow for you. And then
it
you get
did.
on this tablet and you're not feeling the same success or
Yep,
experience.
exactly. Yeah, and it was, the thing is, I was so excited to find out about compounds, and I was so excited to have access to them, that I was just so hopeful that I'd be able to continue with the same kind of success that I had seen on Wegovy. And then it, it just did not. It
Now,
did
why
not
did you
go
go with
well.
the pill versus the injection of a
So I
semaglutide?
went with the pill because it was quite a bit less expensive.
Okay.
And they told me that it would work the same. The
Mhm.
compound pharmacy was like, "Oh, it'll be just fine. Like, you can," and I'm sure it's way less expensive for them to produce it, because
Mhm.
to produce a compound, they have to use a sterile pharmacy.
Mhm.
And it's just a lot more expensive to produce. So they charge more for it. And so I decided that if I could get something that was a pill that would work just as fine and pay a lot less for it, then I was all for that. But then it didn't work. Um, and I was actually contemplating switching to, sorry, my allergies are going crazy. I was actually contemplating switching to the injection when Mounjaro was approved by the FDA.
Oh, wow.
And I was so excited because of the trial results, and everybody was having so much better results on Mounjaro. And I was like, yes, this is going to be
Mhm.
amazing. And I'm so excited. And I got the very, very first compound, or the very, very first coupon,
Oh,
which
wow.
was 12 refills at $25 a month, regardless of if your insurance covered it at all.
Wow.
And I was like, I have a whole year. I'm going to lose all the rest of my weight
So
because
this coupon was valid for a whole year, right
yes,
off at the right
for
at the start.
12 refills from the start,
Wow.
for $25 a month. And I was like, if I have a whole year and it works better than Wegovy, then I'll be able to lose all the rest of my weight in those 12 months and I'll be good. And then I
Now,
won't be
what year
eating
was
on it
this? Was
anymore.
this
This was
2023?
2022.
2022.
That
Okay.
was 2022 when so Mounjaro was approved in, I want to say it was like May, it may have been April of 2022.
2022. Okay.
And it took, a month or two for them to actually get it distributed to pharmacies after it was approved. And so I basically was one of the very first people that was
Wow.
getting a prescription and getting it, to me. And I didn't have diabetes, but because they paid for it without my insurance having to cover it, it didn't matter. I didn't have to deal with the insurance part.
Okay. Okay. So,
So,
so the fact that you weren't diabetic had nothing to do with it because the
mm-mm,
insurance company wasn't involved.
exactly.
Wow. Wow. So, were
Exactly.
you a little nervous about taking something that was for a diabetic when you weren't diabetic?
No,
No. No. Okay.
because here's the thing, Wegovy and Ozempic, exact same medication. The only difference is branding. So it had originally been FDA approved for diabetes treatment under the name Ozempic. They took the exact same medication and did FDA testing for weight loss. And when the FDA approved it for weight loss, they rebranded it as Wegovy with higher doses. So
Right.
they had tested it on higher doses for weight loss, and that was how it became Wegovy. But Wegovy and Ozempic, exact same medication. So Mounjaro was approved for diabetes treatment, but again, they had even better weight loss results in the trial than Wegovy did. So I went on to Mounjaro, and then they started the weight loss trials, and then it got approved for weight loss, and that's when they rebranded it as Zepbound. So Mounjaro, Zepbound, same exact medication. They don't even have a difference in dosing. Like
No.
they're exactly the same. Versus and Ozempic and Wegovy, same exact medication, slightly different. It's a higher dosage on um, Wegovy. Now, when I started Wegovy, that was going up to 2.4. That was before they had even released the 2 milligram dose of Ozempic. So I think the highest dose for Ozempic at that point may have been 1 milligram, but I'm not 100% on that. You'd have to fact check me on that. But while I was on Wegovy, they had increased the max dose for Ozempic to 2 milligrams.
Okay.
So, but the max dose for Wegovy is 2.4.
Now, did you ever reach that 2.4 initially when you lost that 65 pounds? So you had
Mm-hmm.
gone all the way up to the
Yeah.
top. Okay.
Yeah. I titrated every 4 weeks because
Okay.
my doctor told me I should. And honestly, that was my biggest regret. Like that was the worst mistake that I made.
I
I
was going to ask
wish
you
Mhm.
if that
I
did you.
wish because I was a super responder. So I started losing weight from the very first shot. Like I want to say my first week I lost like 8.5 pounds or something like that. Now, granted, the majority of that was water weight, but I continued to lose just like crazy amounts of weight. And in fact, I lost more on the lower doses than I did on some of the higher doses. By the time I got up to, I think it's 1.7, that was when the shortages had kind of started really kicking off. And I wasn't able to get 2.4 right away. I should have been on 2.4 for 2 months before my coupon ran out, but I ended up being stuck on 1.7 for 2 months. And 1.7 was the worst dose for me. I had the worst results on 1.7 that I did on any of them. Like I had better results on 0.25 than I had on 1.7.
Wow.
So it just kind of goes to show like there is kind of a magic dose for people, and it's not always the
The
highest one.
higher doses. Yes.
But the thing is now I've been on the medications for so long and I've been on the highest doses for so long that trying to go down to lower doses at this point, like even the highest doses at this point don't work for me the way that they did.
Oh, wow.
So, but yeah, so I was on Mounjaro for a year. Mounjaro did not work as well for me as Wegovy did. I had really bad anxiety and depression on Mounjaro, which I did not have on Wegovy at all. And I didn't even realize that those were side effects of Mounjaro. I just thought I was sad because I wasn't losing as much weight. Um, but literally the next year when my mounjaro coupon ran out and I switched back to a semaglutide compound, but I did the subdermal injection this time and it worked great. Like literally from the first shot on wegovy, the anxiety and depression were gone. I felt like a completely different person.
Now, did you talk to your doctor about that? Did they have a reasoning for that?
I mean, it has to do with how it interacts with your brain. Like
Sure.
GLP does a ton of stuff in your body. Like if you've never done the research and looked into what the GLP-1 hormone that exists in your body, like what it's responsible for, it does a lot. And your gut health, like people talk about how important gut health is. Gut health actually has a direct tie to anxiety, depression, all sorts of mental stuff, like things with your brain, because your gut influences your brain. There's a whole gut brain connection thing going on. I'm not an expert, so again, this is all generalities. I've read about it, but that doesn't stick.
Right.
So, so that's why they think it happens. But I mean, I don't think anybody really knows why we have the side effects we have, other than, obviously the GI side effects, because you're introducing a lot more of a hormone than your body is used to having in your gut that's responsible for digestion. And because it affects the gastrointestinal emptying and it slows that emptying and all of that, like that's where a lot of that kind of like those GI side effects come from. I was lucky that I never really experienced much nausea. Like I had it intermittently, mostly on mounjaro, which is funny because mounjaro has a lower incident of side effects, supposedly, like in the trials, than wegovy did. But for whatever reason, it just did not work well for me. And my doctor says that because she works a lot with GLPs with her patients, she notices that people who are insulin resistant, her patients who are insulin resistant, do much better on tirzepatide, on mounjaro and Zepbound, than her patients who are not insulin resistant. And I'm not insulin resistant, which is a
Okay, so that
miracle.
makes a
Like,
difference.
I don't understand how I'm not insulin resistant with all the dieting and everything that I did. But I'm
And
not.
you weren't diabetic either, so I think
No,
that
I
that's
was
great.
pre-diabetic. We did my blood tests before, when I was at 365 pounds, just as like a before, like to look at what my markers looked like before I started the medications, to make sure that the medications were actually helping me. And I was borderline pre-diabetic. So I was like at the very bottom measurement of what pre-diabetic was. But I wasn't full-blown type 2 diabetes.
Well, that's good. It
Um,
sounds like you caught it though before you were headed there, which is
yeah.
great.
I mean, and a big part of why I decided to finally get a hold of my health was my mom had just experienced earlier that year her third heart attack. She had had 3 strokes already. My mom has lipedema, lymphedema. Her arthritis is so bad that she can hardly walk. And I knew that that was what
Sorry
was
to hear
waiting
that.
for me if I didn't get a hold, because my mom had never been as heavy as I was. Like
Oh,
I was
wow.
heavier than she had ever been. Um, I mean, I think my mom got up to 300 pounds maybe, but I don't think she ever got anywhere near 365. I mean, I am 4 inches taller than my mom, so
How tall are you?
I'm 5'6".
5'6", okay.
My mom's 5'2". She little.
Okay. So that's a lot of weight for her though, even 300 pounds at 5'2".
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean,
How is
and
she doing now? Is every
you know,
okay, that's okay.
she's still not doing great. Her doctors are
Sorry
actually
to hear
trying to
that.
get her on Ozempic.
Oh, okay.
But she's got some other issues that she needs to take care of first before she does that. So it's just, she's turned 79 this year. So she's dealing with all the aging things,
Oh,
and
I'm sure.
in addition to, what happens when, you've been obese to morbidly obese for most of your adult life. And that's kind of what a lot of my family is. I think my mom and I are probably the heaviest, or were the heaviest of all the women in my family. But now that I'm kind of this year has been the year where I realized like the weight loss has slowed down so much, like to practically a standstill. So I lost that first year, I lost, I want to say it was like 93 to 95 pounds. And in the 2 years since then, I've only lost another 30 or so pounds. And like I realized earlier this
Now,
year
see,
that
I think only is um
I
it's
know,
not a
but
good word to
it's
use.
hard to be like, I lost 95 pounds in
I
my
know.
first year.
So
And
I actually
then,
wrote this down because your first year, you said you actually lost 96 pounds, and then your
mhm,
second year, you were at like 105. You said you lost 10
I
pounds.
only lost about 10 pounds that second year.
Right. So
And
I can
then,
see how you would probably be, oh, not probably, for sure, be discouraged because
oh
you're
yeah.
thinking 10 pounds and you're putting all this work in, and it is
Mhm,
work. And I see how you're, paying attention to your meals, your calorie intake. Like
mhm.
weight loss could be a second job.
Yeah,
If you, if you really
especially
think
when you're
about.
doing a YouTube channel to chronicle all of it.
Yes, when you're putting this all together. And then your
Mhm,
3rd year, you were at 125 pounds lost, so you lost an additional 20, which
20.
is the 30 pounds in the 2 years.
Mhm.
So I guess I'm wondering, so when did you switch doctors? Because your first doctor was the one that had you titrating up, which is what they
Yeah.
knew to do, right?
Yeah,
I don't
well,
think
that's
they
what
knew
they
different.
told people to do,
Right.
and I honestly, so okay, I switched doctors because when I started looking at compounds,
Okay.
because the doctor that I had, the first doctor that I had, she was great about getting me onto the medication, but she didn't want to deal with insurance. She didn't want to talk to help with PAs. She didn't want to do any of that. Like
Wow.
anytime I asked her questions about titration, about anything, she would write me back and say, "It sounds like you need to talk to an obesity doctor."
Oh,
Like,
wow.
which I knew that if I went to go see an obesity doctor, they were going to tell me I needed bariatric surgery. And I did not want to go that route, especially with Wegovy working as well as it was for me. And
Now wait,
so
how long was she your doctor? I'm just trying to think of,
that's okay. Yeah,
help people
she
out
was
there who might be in a similar situation with, people don't wanna switch a doctor when they find a doctor they love up until they get to a
yeah.
certain issue or medical condition. People are so
Mhm.
reluctant to switch it or get a second opinion, so I think this
Yeah,
is important.
honestly, it was when I decided that I wanted to do a compound and she wouldn't even talk about it. She
Okay.
wouldn't even entertain it as a thought. She was like, "Nope, I won't do that. I don't if you wanna talk about you need to talk to somebody else. You need to go to an obesity clinic. I'm not
And
doing
how
that."
long has she been your doctor before this?
I had seen her and understand my doctor, like, it's very loose. Like, she was identified as my primary care physician for 2 years. I think I saw her twice
Okay, okay,
in that 2 years before I started Wegovy.
okay.
So, I wasn't attached to her, but I there was a reason for that. Like, she was not the bedside manner was not great. She was not at all invested in my health. She was not at all invested in doing what she wanted to do. I think she was pretty close to retirement, and she was about just, like,
Getting you
regular
in and getting
checkups,
you out.
physicals, getting in, getting out, getting on with her life, and that was not what I needed. I needed a doctor that was actually invested in my health and invested in doing whatever needed to be done in order to keep me on this journey so that I could continue to lose the weight. And I tried switching to another doctor in her practice, well, at the place where she was working,
Sure.
because I knew my insurance covered that doctor's office. And I went to him and I brought all the stuff about the compounds. And I brought him everything he needed to do to prescribe me a compound. And he was just like, I don't know enough about compounds. I'm not interested. Find
Oh,
somebody
wow.
else. And so basically what I did was I went to the compounding pharmacy and I was like, look, I don't know if you can tell me this or not, but are there any doctors that you work with in Austin that send you prescriptions for these compounds that will actually work with you? Because I can't find anybody. I called around to like 5 other doctors' offices to ask if they ever prescribed compounds and all of them said no.
Wow.
And so ultimately I ended up going through the compounding pharmacy itself, and they were like, "Yeah, we work with this one doctor's office, Vital Wellness or Vital Health Wellness or something like that." And so I called and booked an appointment with them. I had to drive 2 hours south to get to this doctor's
Wow.
office. And they said they did telehealth, but I had to go in person for my very first visit. And I met with a woman there, and she was very sweet. She was very helpful. She was obviously willing to prescribe me the compound and all of that. And I liked her, but we didn't super connect. She was very pregnant. And the
Mhm.
next time I wanted to go back, she was already out on maternity leave. And so they were like, "Well, do you mind meeting with a registered nurse instead?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine with that." I've met with RNs in the past and had good experiences. Sometimes they'll take even more time with you than a doctor will. I'm
Sure.
totally up with that. And so that was the first time that I met with Jessica Ruiz, who is my RN. And she's since left Vital Life and started her own practice, and I went with her. And
Oh.
I won't, like I said, I won't. They will have to pry me away from her cold dead hands. Like she doesn't even. My insurance doesn't even cover her because of how her practice is. She does all cash pay, which a lot of doctors are switching to now because insurance
Mhm.
is such a hassle. Um, but she still honors my insurance copay for my doctor's visits. And she just, I've never had a doctor sit with me and go over every single line item on a piece of blood work and tell me what it means and why it's important. And like she will do that every time we do blood work, which we do it several times a year. She will sit there and she'll go, "Okay, this looks really good. This is why this is important. Okay, well, this is still normal, but it's on the low end of normal. The only reason that would
Wow.
be an issue is if you're experiencing this, or this. Are you experiencing any of those? Well, kind of." So then she'll suggest supplementation first so that we're not immediately going to another prescription. And like, since being with her, like, we've gotten my hormones under control. We've gotten, not just my weight, but like my cholesterol is great. We originally, my HDL, my good cholesterol was a little on the low side. So she kind of gave me some suggestions for things that I could do to make that increase. Now, though, my HDL levels are beautiful. Like, it makes such a huge difference having a doctor that's actually going to partner with you. And that's one of the advices that I give on my channel all the time. Do not be afraid to fire your doctor. Like, do not be afraid to fire your
For
doctor.
sure.
If they are not partnering with you in your health, they are doing you no good whatsoever. You
I
can
actually think they also should be an advocate for you because they
absolutely.
know more than you know, when it
Mhm.
comes to
Yep.
in certain instances, not your
Yeah.
body, because you know your body the best. But,
Yeah.
they have that medical background, so they really should be advocating
For
for
sure.
you
For
to do
sure.
what's best for you.
Yeah, the only other doctor that I have spoken with that I love just as much as Jessica was my Friday's Health doctor. I partner with Friday's Health. They are a telehealth weight loss, like they're specifically geared towards weight loss, um, like company, and they help people get access to compounds and all sorts of things. They also have an insurance concierge department that gets PAs pushed through. So like
Oh,
they specialize in that. And the doctor that I met with them was Dr. Jensen, I believe. It's been months ago.
mhm.
I absolutely loved him. Like he told me things that even Jessica hadn't told me about, like things that
Wow.
I could do to boost the effectiveness of my wegovy since it wasn't working as well anymore, and just all sorts of things. Like going to see a doctor that is well versed in GLPs is so important. Like, because otherwise you're with somebody that rushes you through the titration, and then you get up to the top and you're like, "Okay, this is fantastic," until it's not, and then you have nowhere to go.
No, and I've
So,
heard that so many times.
my number one piece of advice for people is not to rush through the titration. Stay on the lowest dose you can until it is absolutely not working anymore, and then move up. If you're experiencing side effects, like GI side effects and stuff like that, and your doctor is pushing you to move up a dose, tell them no. You can do that.
Yeah.
You can tell the
So
doctor
why
no.
so why
I
would
think
you
people
tell
are
them
afraid
no?
to,
Why would you tell them no because of the side
because
effects?
so if you're experiencing nausea, like extreme nausea on a low dose of these medications, going up to a next dose, that nausea is going to get worse. It's not
Mhm.
going to get better. And so if it's better to stay on those lower doses, the whole reason that the titration schedule exists is to get your body used to having that excess of that hormone in your body so that you don't have extreme side effects.
Yes.
So if your body is experiencing those extreme side effects on those low doses, you're just one of those people that's extra sensitive to the medication and you need to give it more time. The problem is that a lot of these doctors just aren't familiar with how these meds work, and I don't blame them, because the reality is that they have to know about thousands and thousands of
Right.
prescriptions.
I
And
agree.
now, would it be nice if they educated themselves a little bit about these drugs given how popular they are? Sure.
For sure.
But I think it's better to, and maybe you have multiple doctors. Like maybe you have the doctor that you see for your weight loss and then you have the doctor that you see for everything else. But for me, the weight loss was the most important thing. Like that was the thing that I needed to get a handle on, because I knew it would affect every other aspect of my health.
Yes, for sure.
And yeah, I've lost 125-ish. I haven't weighed myself in a while. I'm taking a break from the scale. But I've lost 125-ish pounds, but I still have another 70 pounds to lose before I even hit my first goal. So I've got a long way to go still. And this year, when I had that realization of how much the meds had slowed down, or how much the weight loss had slowed down, I realized that while I was kind of blaming it on the medication, if I looked at it really closely, a lot of it, most of it was me. I had backslid into some really bad habits. And because the medications weren't working as well as they had before, I was able to backslide into those habits a lot more easily. And so this year, I kind of shifted my focus a lot on getting my mind right, I guess. Earlier this year, I started seeing a therapist and started trying to talk to her about my kind of binging tendencies and
So
like
can we
where
talk
that,
about that? 'Cause I
yeah.
found that so interesting. Like,
Uh-huh.
so you said you have a food addiction and,
Mhm.
you and so, do you 'cause when I look at your channel and see all the cooking, I would think if I was like, I am trying to lose weight, and so
Mhm.
so far I've lost 41 pounds on mounjaro, and I don't really wanna cook as much because I feel like it's more me being surrounded by food, and I think actually taking out take going to ta get takeout was probably worse than me cooking myself at
Right,
home,
definitely.
and
Yeah,
so I
because
cut that out, tremendously, so that's
mhm.
been a plus, DoorDash doesn't probably love me for that, but my bank account does.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
you save money that way, but I see someone like you who's cooking, and I think if you have a food addiction and you're very into cooking and preparing meals, how does that
Mhm.
work?
So, I think you relearn how to cook, right?
Mm,
So, I talk about on my channel a lot macro-friendly food. It's a recipe subscription service that she has over 900 low calorie, high protein recipes on her site. And I think the thing that I've learned most from using recipes like that and services like that is it's like you learn a whole new way to cook. So I grew up with a mom from the Midwest, so everything was butter and cream and cheese, and you know what I mean? And that's kind of how I cooked. And now I still do use butter and things, and I still
mhm.
use cheese, but I use reduced fat cheese. I use light butter sometimes.
You
Sometimes I
make
use
those
full on butter,
substitutions.
but I only use 1 tablespoon instead of 4. And I realized that, you know, you don't actually need to use heavy whipping cream to make a creamy sauce. You can use chicken broth to make the saucy part, and then you can add a bunch of fat-free Greek yogurt to it, and it makes a delicious creamy sauce that I can't tell the difference, but it's got literally a quarter of the calories and 3 times the amount of protein. So
Wow.
I it's learning, like relearning how to cook. I love macro-friendly food because she focuses a lot on kind of comfort foodie type recipes. She does a lot of uh copycat recipes. So like she has a
Mhm.
whole bunch of Cheesecake Factory copycats and Disney copycat recipes and Chili's copycat recipes. And like, so all these recipes where I can make food that I enjoy eating that tastes like a high calorie food, but it's not. Like it's very calorie friendly. And so that's kind of how I've dealt with it, because I know I'm not going to stop cooking. I know that cooking myself is definitely more calorie friendly than anything I'm going to get from a restaurant,
For sure.
because they're not concerned at all about how much fat they put in your food when they cook it, because the more fat, the more delicious. Like that's just
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
rules. Like that's the truth. And a lot more sodium usually than what you're going to cook at home,
For
which
sure.
causes you to retain water. Weight does not equal fat. That's
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
real. In fact, the majority of the weight that we have in our bodies that we fluctuate from day to day is water weight.
It's the water, right?
Um, Carbohydrates hold on to water. So glycogen attracts water molecules. I believe for every gram of carbohydrate that you ingest, I think your body holds on to, it's like, I can't remember exactly how much it is, but it's like 6 to 10 grams of water.
Wow.
So if you have, I don't know, a piece of bread with dinner, or you eat some low calorie pasta the night before, even though the calories are totally fine, you could step on the
Mhm.
scale the next morning and have gained 3 pounds. That's not fat, sweetie. That's
It's
water.
not. Yeah.
So it's why I'm taking a break from the scale right now. I about a month ago, I started seeing a registered dietitian because I had heard how useful they were for disordered eating, for eating disorder recovery. And, I already know approximately how many calories I should be eating. I know how many macros I should be eating. But from my very, very first meeting with her, she zeroed in on my control issues. I am a control freak, big time. I'm a perfectionist. I have some OCD tendencies. And for me, like everything in my whole life, not just dieting, everything is about control. That's how I reduce my anxiety. If I'm prepared, then I'm not anxious. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
try to control everything. And with my dieting, that's been meticulous calorie counting. Now macro counting, making sure I get at least 30% of my calories from protein. Doing all of these things, meticulously planning my meal plans every week, making sure I know when I'm going to eat out, when I'm not going to eat out. I don't do it when I'm not supposed to, but when I do, boy, howdy do I. And so it's just led to this other type of binge restrict cycle that is really what's been responsible for me losing and gaining the same 10 to 15 pounds every couple of months, and led to me only losing 30 pounds in the last 2 years. And it's nuts as I'm going through this intuitive eating book with my registered dietitian, and just learning that I don't trust myself at all when it comes to food. Like, I do not trust myself. I don't trust myself to listen to myself when I'm hungry. I don't trust myself to listen to when I'm full. I don't trust myself to listen to what my body is asking me to feed it. I don't trust it at all. So I plan everything, and I
Okay, so
eat.
let me
Mhm.
let me go back here. You said you
Sure.
have obsessive calorie counting, and then you
Mhm.
said then on the weekends you binge eat. So you were obsessing with your calorie count so that you could have low calories during the week and then on the
Mhm.
weekend. So when you binged on the weekends, were you within your calorie range or were you just out of the
I
ballpark?
wasn't necessarily always counting calories on the weekend,
I see. I
because
see.
I had told myself, "Oh, well, I have over 2,000 calories a day on the weekend, and I would only eat out once in the morning, usually, and then I
Okay.
would try to eat leftovers. But then sometimes we would end up having plans with people, so we would eat out twice. And even overeating just a little bit at a restaurant, it's real easy to eat more than 1,000 calories.
Oh, for
Heck,
sure.
you don't even have to overeat to eat more than 1,000 calories at a restaurant.
No. You
So
can eat the salad and still with the dressing on there and,
heck
a little
yes.
maybe a
Yeah.
little slice of
My
bread, you're
favorite
over
my
1,000.
favorite salad at Cheesecake Factory is almost 2,000 calories if you eat the whole thing.
Oh,
It's nuts.
and it's a
Like,
salad.
and it's a salad. That's healthy, right? Because
No,
there's like 50 grams of sesame oil in that dressing, and that's 300 calories right there, 400 calories. So, but anyway, it's kind of I'm shifting my focus from I know approximately how many calories I'm eating still because I'm still meal planning because I can't not have a plan during the week. Not having a plan for me is a bad idea. Um, Decision fatigue is a thing for me. If I don't have a plan, I'm just gonna grab whatever is there, and that's much worse. So I
mm,
know approximately how many calories I'm eating, but like the last couple of weeks, I've been trying to get back in tune with listening to my body, like learning what it feels like to be hungry, learning what it feels like to be full,
now do you
learning.
mind sharing your current calorie range? Like, d do you mind sharing
I want to say I'm around 1,700 calories a
that?
day, but like I said, I'm not actually logging anything right now. I'm also not weighing anything right now. I'm like I said, I'm trying to listen to my body to tell me when I'm full.
Well,
In the
that's a
beginning.
non-scale victory for you because if you've been obsessing about counting these calories and having
Mhm.
everything, so right up to the perfect calorie count, to let that go, that's a
Uh-huh.
non-scale victory. So you have
It
to give
is,
yourself credit for that.
and it's hard. But having my dietitian in my corner cheering for me has been huge. I went through Nourish. I don't have a partnership with them or anything, but they actually were able to get my insurance to cover my meetings with my dietitians 100%. I don't pay a dime for it. They
Wow.
originally wanted to charge me $40, but Nourish went back and told them, no, no, no. Like, this is preventative treatment because she's recovering from an eating disorder and she's obese. And they were like, oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry. And now I don't pay anything to
Now
meet
who
with
is
my
Nourish
dietitian.
again? I didn't catch.
Nourish is a company that basically helps connect people with registered dietitians,
Now
and
how
they
did you
help get.
find them? You just looked them up or did your doctor
No, I
recommend them?
found it through an influencer that I follow on
Okay,
Instagram, but I've kind of seen ads for them all over the place.
okay.
But yeah, I finally ended up like pursuing looking at getting a meeting with a dietitian through them through I want to say it's Lose It Log is the
Okay,
name of the girl that I follow on Instagram.
okay.
She's also on a journey to lose 200 pounds. I think she's using Mounjaro as well. And she's lost about 60 pounds so far. She's an absolute sweetheart. Love her. If you're not following her, she's worth a follow. But
I
she does
will.
100% short form content. It's all reels and
Okay.
stuff like that. So, um, but I I have never attempted intuitive eating because I never trusted myself to eat like a normal human being ever in my entire life. Um, and so it's odd like learning about it and learning about kind of the principles of intuitive eating and stuff like that. It's just like every philosophy, like there's some of it I take and some of it I leave. I believe that intuitive eating was kind of the foundation for the body positivity movement, which I am
Mhm.
not a huge fan of.
Mhm.
Absolutely feel beautiful at any size. That's wonderful. But trying to deceive yourself into saying that you're a healthy person at 365 pounds is just delusion. I'm sorry. It is.
That's
There
a
is
that's a controversial topic right
it
there.
is a controversial topic and you don't have to include that. But
No, I will.
I just I I knew at 365 pounds, regardless of how beautiful my husband thought I was, and I did not see myself at the weight that I was. Like looking back at my pictures of myself when I was 365 pounds, and there aren't very many of them because I avoided cameras, but I don't recognize my face. Like I don't my sister, who obviously has known me my entire life and most of my life I've been much heavier than I am right now. She and I were looking through some old pictures and we found one from Disneyland. And she was like, "Who is this in this picture with Bradley, my nephew?" And both of us realized at the same time it was me.
It was you.
And it was like, I don't, that's not my face. Like, that's not my body. That's not, I don't remember looking like that. And I still don't recognize myself sometimes now. Like, even though I've essentially been at this weight for almost 2 years, I still don't recognize myself. Like the body dysmorphia is real. When I go shopping for clothes now, I'll hold up a pair of jeans that are in my size and I'll be like, there's no way my butt's going to fit in those. That's not a thing. My butt's not that size. That is not my butt size. And then I'll put them on and they're too big. And I'm like, nope, that's not real
Wow.
life. That's Harry Potter right there. That's what that is. I don't understand.
Isn't that a good feeling though?
It is. It's a good feeling, but it's a weird feeling to not know your body, to not recognize your body. Like that's weird. It's weird.
Well, you still have some weight to lose. So wait till you
I,
get down even further.
I have not been below 200 pounds since probably right after high school.
Oh wow.
So that will be very weird. Um, I'm excited to get there. And I'm excited with the things that I'm doing with intuitive eating now because I always knew that there was going to come a time where I didn't want to have to be obsessively counting calories. Like I always knew that that was a thing that I wanted for myself, but I was way too scared to let that go because I
Oh,
just
sure.
knew that that was the thing that was keeping me from gaining weight. You know what
Now,
I
what
mean?
tool did you use the calorie count?
I started with my Fitness Pal, but when
Okay,
they started charging for everything, I switched to macros first.
macros first. Is that
Mhm.
free?
Yeah, it's free. It's totally
Okay.
free. They do have a premium version, but all of the features that I needed were free.
And it's an app too,
It's
macros
an app
first?
too.
I've
Mhm.
never heard of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Very
and
cool.
it's I liked it because like I found it when I was starting to focus more on protein. They have a lot more features on it that are more friendly towards tracking protein specifically. Like if you want to, let's say you're making a recipe for a sandwich and you want to have a certain number of grams of protein in your sandwich, you can, instead of increasing the amount of ounces of turkey, you can write in there how many grams of protein you want, and it will adjust how much turkey you need in order to meet that protein count. So
Okay.
it'll like do it backwards for you. So it has little things like that that are built in that my Fitness Pal does not have, which I liked. But it's still got all the same basic stuff. But the way that it like itemizes your daily thing, like up at the top, like it has the calorie count, but more it has more focus on the macro part, like what percentage of protein, what percentage of carbs, what percentage of fat.
Wow. Now, how much protein do you get in?
Um, I try to get in about 30% of my calories, which at 1700, I want to say is around 160 grams, but I could be wrong. Give me just a second. I'll do quick math. Uh, divided by, nope, times by 4. That's about, no, it's about 127 grams of protein, 128,
Okay, okay.
somewhere in there. So at 1700 calories, I try to get around 127, but I'm usually closer to 150, to be honest.
Those are
Um,
250. That's still pretty good.
yeah. It's
Do you have a
when you
protein bar? Like, because most people who can't get the meat in or the high
yeah.
protein, the beans or anything, do you have like a favorite protein bar?
Oh yeah. I the only protein bar that I eat are Built Puffs.
Built
So
up?
Built Bar, they have protein bars and then they have protein puffs.
Oh,
And puffs are basically a chocolate covered marshmallow. They taste like a candy bar and they're a
also sounds
collagen
good.
They're a collagen protein. I have a discount link for them on all of my videos. It's like
Okay.
10% off, and it stacks with whatever sale they have going on pretty much all the time.
And your
Uh,
channel is your same name, Mindy Peterson, so
yes, it
it's
is.
up there so
Mhm.
people can find that. Okay.
Yeah. And but sorry, I'm looking at my my stash of protein
Oh,
bars under
you're
my
fine.
chair. But I think today they have my favorite flavor is on sale right now. They have a coconut brownie fudge chunk.
Ooh.
So it's like a coconut marshmallow with chunks of protein brownie, and the whole thing is covered in dark chocolate. So they
Mm,
have different flavors all the time, but they are insanely good. The cookie dough chunk puff is definitely a favorite. But if you like the texture of marshmallows, those puffs are insanely good. I'm not a huge fan of their bars. So the
o
bars are very chewy. You
okay.
know that like you know
Yeah,
that
I'm
protein bar
not a food
texture. I'm
texture
not a huge
person
fan
either.
of that. Like, they are so hard to chew. There's some science behind it. Chewing actually boosts your satiation.
Mhm.
So, eating a really chewy protein bar is supposed to make you feel full. I just don't like the flavor of them or the texture. So I
Okay.
prefer those. The awesome thing about the puffs is you can stick them on a graham cracker in the microwave for about 10 or 15 seconds and it's like a protein s'more. They're so
Oh, that
good.
sounds good. That
They
sounds
are
good.
so good. And the macros are like they're 140 to 160 calories with 16 to 18 grams of protein.
16 to 18. Wow.
Yeah, they have the best
Thanks for
macros of
that.
any protein bar that I've found. Most protein bars are around 200 calories, and if they've got 10 grams of protein, you're doing good. And these are usually around 40% protein.
And someone
So
just shared with me a protein bar. I think it's called Fulfill, and it
yeah,
has
I
200
haven't tried
calories,
it.
I believe, and it has 20 grams of protein.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm gonna try that because that's a
Yeah,
lot, but,
yeah. I don't want to waste 200 calories on a protein bar.
oh,
That's
that
my
is a
thing.
lot.
You know what I mean? It's like that's a lot. That's what I don't eat. I try to get most of my protein from Whole Foods. So I don't really drink protein shakes a lot. I don't really do protein bars a lot, but every once in a while I'll be hungry between meals and I'll grab a built puff. Like I always have one in my purse just in case. Um, the only protein shakes that I drink are the Fairlife nutrition ones, the ones that are 150 calories with 30 grams of protein.
Yeah, those are my favorite.
They are so stinking good.
They
We're
are
getting towards cold weather now, you can do the hot I make them into hot chocolate. Have you ever
chocolate.
done that?
Mhm, mhm.
They're so
Yes.
good.
Now let me
Uh,
ask you, I can't leave this out. Exercise, because I know I remember watching your videos and you talked about how you had a lot of joint pain and you weren't able to move and your doctor put you on, I think you said, 5-minute walks. That was your max, and then you
in
could
the
only
very
do
beginning, yeah.
swimming in the beginning.
Mhm.
And so now we see you're always walking with your dog.
Yeah, I walk a lot. I walk 10 to 20 minutes every morning at least. I used to walk up to 3 times a day, but now that I'm working a job where I'm on my feet.
Okay.
So I have, 4 to 6 hours a day of like walking. So I'm anywhere between 5,000 and 7,500 steps a day usually. In the beginning, we're talking less than 2,000 steps a day, at least.
Wow.
So I was very sedentary when I started this journey. Um, Randomly, like intermittently throughout my journey, I have done some strength training. Strength training is very, very valuable, especially for a weight loss journey. Um, Lean muscle mass is the
Mhm.
best way to increase your metabolism. Muscle burns more calories at rest. So it's really a great way to like to build up your metabolism and to keep your body from cannibalizing its own muscle tissue because if you don't use it, you lose it. It's easier for your body to break down muscle tissue than it is for it to break down fat tissue. How's that for fun?
Yeah.
So, if you're not eating enough and you're not getting enough protein in and you're not using your muscle for strength training and building it up, then your body will cannibalize its own muscle tissue for calories. And that's why a lot of people who kind of don't approach weight loss with overall health in mind on these meds, like you'll see people, I will talk to people that are eating less than 1,000 calories a day on these medications. If you eat like that, you're going to lose just as much muscle mass as you do body fat. Like
For sure.
it's just what's going to happen. And it's not good for you. I mean, long term, you're going to destroy your metabolism because eventually you have what's called metabolic adaptation, where your metabolism slows down all of your body processes so that it uses fewer calories. And that's how you get people that are eating less than 1,200 calories a day to lose weight, because they've just ground their metabolism down to nothing. And that's the only way
Mhm.
they can get into a deficit. So walking is your best friend. Like, just walk. You don't
Just
need to
walk.
run. You don't need to do anything crazy. I've been wanting for a long time, and I'm hoping soon that I'm going to try to get one of those desk treadmills so that I can
Oh,
walk
that's nice.
while I edit and work and stuff like that. Or you can slide them under your couch and then just pull them out and walk while you're watching TV, while you're reading, whatever. Like anything you can do. Like, it's called increasing your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It is responsible for the largest portion of your daily calorie expenditure.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's the best way
That's a
to
good
increase your
nugget. Thank
calorie
you.
burn. It is, yeah. So it is the largest portion of your TDEE, or total daily energy expenditure. I have a video on my channel where I talk about protein, like how important protein is. And I talk about kind of your metabolism breakdown and like
Mhm.
what makes up the different parts of your metabolism and stuff like that. It's in there.
Now you had something called, flexible eating, or was it flexible calorie counting, flexible eating, or flexible
Calorie
protein?
cycling,
Recycling, okay.
calorie
You
cycling.
used
Yeah.
a word flexible too in there, and I was thought, "What does
Yeah.
that mean?"
Yeah. So it's well, flexible dieting lifestyle is a guy that I follow on Instagram, and he also has some great like macro friendly recipes and stuff like that.
Okay.
Usually in the description of all of my videos, I have this big chunk of all the creators that I follow that do high protein recipes. So if you're interested in finding
Okay, I'm gonna
people that have
definitely
good, they're there. But so flexible dieting, or calorie cycling, as it's called, is kind of what I do, where I eat fewer calories during the week so that I can save
okay,
them up for the
for the
weekend.
weekend.
And that's basically, I take my calories and I average them out over the week. So some days, and that's normal for our bodies. Some days we're not as hungry.
Sure.
Some days we eat less. Some days we're hungrier, we eat more. The problem is that because of the kind of whole restriction binge thing,
Sure,
and
yeah.
it's not a full, like what I do now is not a full on binge. It's not like what I did when I was 365 pounds. I'm not going to 4 different restaurants and ordering food from all 4 restaurants and eating all of that food at the same time. Like, I'm not doing that anymore. It's just I'm definitely eating more than I need to eat of foods that are very high calorie
Now have
on
you
the
found
weekend.
Now, have you
Mhm.
found this? Because I remember when Weight Watchers introduced that whole idea of saving up your calories, or having like a little, portion of, 20 calories, or I mean, points, or however many points
Right, right.
where you could eat, and, you could add that on. And I noticed that if I would, there was kind of like a reserve, if you will, if I could call it
Mhm.
that. And when you dipped into that reserve, I really never lost when I dipped into that. Maybe I would lose a half a point or a point, and I don't know if it's because now I noticed if I took the reserve amount of calories during the beginning of the week, I would still
Mhm.
have a weight loss. But if I waited to
Yeah,
that weekend, which most people do, I think, because you socialize maybe more, you eat
right.
out, you have events
Mhm.
there on the weekend, I wouldn't really lose weight. So I always never wanted to tap into that reserve when it
Yeah,
was
well,
close
and it
to the
depends
end.
on when you're weighing yourself too, right? So, like,
Yes,
if you were to weigh yourself, let's say on Friday morning, before you do all of that on the weekend, by the
sure.
time you get through to next Friday again and you've been good all week,
Mhm, mhm.
because most of the time, like we talked about earlier, a pound is not a pound. Like, just because you gain a pound doesn't mean it's a pound of fat. It can be
Yes.
water. So most of the time when we're indulging at those restaurants, we're not usually eating protein. we're
Yes.
eating usually carbohydrates, and carbohydrates hold on to water more than anything else. So when you're weighing yourself after eating those carbohydrate heavy meals, your body weight is going to be higher, but that doesn't mean that you didn't lose weight. It
Yeah.
just means that you weigh more because you ate more carbohydrates. That's it. So that's why I've kind of taken a step away from the scale, because even though psychologically I knew all of that, it was still really taking a toll on my mental health every time I would step on the
For sure.
scale and see my weight went up again, even though I know why. And or it didn't go down as much as I hoped it would, even though I was doing all the things that I should have done. It doesn't change how I'm approaching how I eat. I'm
And
not
were
going to
you
all of a
weighing every
sudden.
day?
I was weighing every day.
Okay.
My um reasoning was that having those data points every single day, I was able to average them out over the week to get an accurate picture of a more accurate picture of what my weight actually looked like,
Okay.
as opposed to only weighing once and maybe I just ate a lot of carbs the day before. So now my weight is higher, even though I don't actually weigh that much. I just am retaining a lot of water,
Sure.
or I'm getting ready to start my period, or, whatever it is that could be affecting that number on the scale. So now I think I'm probably going to end up going to the other extreme, where maybe I'm only going to weigh myself once a month
Oh, wow.
or once every couple of months, because then I'm not obsessing over, am I do I need to change the way I'm eating? Do I need to change this? Do I need to change that? So maybe if I'm only weighing myself once a month, if I'm doing everything I should do, that number should move
It
in a
should.
month.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Or in 2 months. So should I be happier then when I step on the scale and I see that I've lost 5 pounds from the last time I stepped on the scale? Or is it going to make me sad because I feel like I should have lost more than 5 pounds? I don't know. And I think having that relationship with the scale it's it's scary. Like I don't want a number on the scale to affect how I feel about the good work that I'm doing on a daily basis. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so
I
I
don't know.
think you should definitely get off of that scale because
Yeah.
I feel like you are freeing your mind up too. When you're letting go of the calorie counting, you're letting go of the scale, you're just
Mhm.
freeing your mind up to be
For sure.
you and to enjoy the process of losing weight because it's hard
Yep.
to enjoy because of the roller coasters.
Oh,
So if
yeah,
you
for
can
sure.
let that go, I just want to point out to you, you have some non-scale victories. The fact that you didn't gain weight, so you did, for the last 2 years, you didn't lose, but you did not gain weight. I think that's a
Mhm.
non-scale victory because in the past, wouldn't you say you would have packed on those
Oh,
pounds?
yeah. I don't think I've ever stuck with anything longer than 6 months before this. Like,
Oh,
6 months
yeah.
was a good diet. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, that was like I
Yes,
was doing good on
I
6
can
months.
relate.
3 years? Mm-mm. Never. Not ever in my life have I stuck with something. Hold on. I lied. When I was in grade school, so when I was living in my mama's house, we started seeing a naturopath, an iridologist, and we went on a very strict natural diet. So, like, we were allowed to eat pretty much anything, but everything had to be raw, unprocessed. You know what I mean? So, whole wheat flour,
Mm,
raw sugar, 100% pure maple syrup, pure
wow.
butter, raw milk, which is terrible for you. We know now, but, like, all of those things, like, that was how we ate, and in 3.5 months, I lost 65 pounds. This was back
Wow.
when I was, like, 11, something like that, and my mom was responsible for buying all of our
Oh,
groceries. I
right.
wasn't responsible for feeding myself.
So you
So
didn't
we
have
stayed on
control
that.
over it.
We stayed on that for, like, 4 years,
Oh,
and
wow.
I maintained that weight loss for, like, 4 years, but again, I didn't have my own money. I didn't have my own car. I didn't have the freedom or the ability to do things like that. I did have my own lunch cart at school, and you better believe that I ate pizza every day for lunch. even though I wasn't supposed to.
You weren't
But
supposed to. That wasn't in the plan.
it was such a small part of my diet that it didn't matter. Like I still and I, I was going to PE every day, so I had an hour of exercise every day, Monday through Friday. So it's like I was forced. There was no choice. You know what I mean? So that's the only other time that I've ever stayed on anything longer than this, but that was not of my own willpower. That was because those choices were being made for me. So I suppose I just need to go to a fat kid concentration camp and where I'm not responsible for any of my food or diet choices. And then
Now,
I can go
how
without.
old are you? I know you're not supposed to ask a lady her
Oh
age,
no,
but
I turned 45 this year.
45. Wow, that's so
Yeah.
cool. So
Yeah.
you've done a fabulous job. Wait till you get 50. When you get 50, you're going to be 50 and fabulous for sure.
Yeah.
So you give yourself some time because you're headed there. Now, I have a
Yeah.
question for you.
Sure.
How would you describe yourself in one word before wegovy entered your
Oh,
life? Like,
good.
what's one word that you could use to describe yourself? And then tell us one word after being on the GLP-1 medication.
One word. That's hard. Um, I mean, I don't know if it's a word or if it's a set of words. If maybe it's hyphenated, out of control.
Out of control. Okay.
I would
Okay.
just say out of control,
Before
just in
Wegovy, and then
general.
after you got introduced to the GLP-1 medication,
Mhm.
how would you
Um,
describe yourself like now?
I would say hopeful,
Hopeful. That's a great word.
probably. Yeah, I would say hopeful. I feel like for the first time in my adult life, I feel like I've always been a control freak. Like that's always been a thing. So like out of control, like I've always been out of control and fighting to try and like
Control
gain
thing.
back that control and control things. But this is the first time in my life that I feel like I'm actually addressing the core of the issue instead of just trying to control everything around it, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Um, because until I address nobody, he wants to go outside. Um, until I get to the bottom of really why I gained the weight in the first place, and until I get to the bottom of like what makes it so hard for me to make healthy choices, like just to have that be an innate thing. Like there are people in this world who just are healthy. They just are. Like they don't have to think about it. They don't have to work at it. They don't have a messed up relationship with food. They're just healthy. And I always thought that that was a genetic thing. And some of it is genetics, but a lot of it is just not having a screwed up relationship with food. And that's kind of what I'm starting to learn as I'm going through this intuitive eating book is that everything that I thought I understood about nutrition, everything that I thought I understood about being healthy and having a healthy relationship with food and all of that is just propaganda, basically. Like we are hammered with diet culture every single day of our lives and like just told the right way to eat and the right way to, what's healthy, what's not healthy, the next big ingredient that's going to kill you. Everything
Mhm.
is fear mongering. Everything is, and it just results in this being in this place of just feeling out of control. And like, no matter what you do, this is just how you're going to be forever. And I usually that's the place that I get to when I'm on a diet is I'm like, I can't do this forever. I can't, if I was on a low carb diet, I can't just never eat ice cream again. I can't just never
Mhm.
have a cookie again. Like I can't just never have pasta or bread again. Like that's
Right.
not a thing. That's not real life. But if this diet is to believed, the only way for me to stay healthy is if I go the rest of my life without eating a cookie. And that's just not real life. And I'm learning that it's not the truth either. Like it's just learning how to be moderate and how to have
Mhm.
balance. And I've never experienced that in my life with food ever. It's always been one extreme or the other.
Or the other. Yes, I can relate.
And so I'm excited about learning moderation and learning the psychology behind how to be moderate. And I think that's kind of the next phase
For
of
you.
my journey that I'm moving into. And I'm excited about it, but it's scary.
I'm excited for you. So
Yeah.
you're a pioneer. You are, I mean, you really truly are a pioneer in this whole GLP-1 weight loss revolution. You're one of the first ones to get that Mounjaro, get the coupon.
Mhm.
You were on Wegovy. You've been dealing with the compound pharmacies. So
Mhm.
what advice would you like before we leave? I just want you to give people out there advice because I know for a fact you're giving people hope. You've even given me hope, and
Oh.
I thought I was so beyond hopeful because I'm so excited about being on this medication. But you've
Yeah.
given me hope, and you've also made me want to go and research some things that I
Mhm.
thought I knew, and maybe I didn't know, don't know as well as I thought. But
Yeah.
what advice would you give people other than the titrating up? Because you really hit that hard earlier. If
Right,
there's
right.
something else you would want people to know.
I would say address address the mental component. Address the try to get to the bottom of what got you to where you are in the first place. Because while the medications will do a great job of quieting the food noise and dampening your appetite and doing all of those things, eventually it's not going to do as great of a job. And if you haven't gotten to the bottom of that and you haven't learned what it is that happened in your relationship with food, in your relationship with people, in whatever it was that got you to that place where food became a coping mechanism or whatever it became in order to cause this weight gain or whatever. Because for most of us, it's not a physical issue, it's an emotional one. Um, if you're not able to address that, then eventually the weight's going to come back. And I've seen that with people who have come off the medications, the people who have really taken the time to address that and who have addressed the habits and who have learned what it means to live in a place of moderation and health. Those people are able to successfully maintain their weight loss, even off of the medications.
Yeah,
But people who don't address that, when they get off the medication, a lot of them end up regaining that weight. And I think the goal for all of us, I would hope, I mean, if you're not diabetic, would be to eventually one day not rely on these medications in order to maintain our weight loss. And I'm really hopeful for that freedom for myself, and I would hope for that freedom for everybody. If you've ever felt trapped in a relationship with food, I would hope that you would take the time to find what's causing it, whether that means working with a dietitian, with a therapist. I think the mental health component of weight loss is so diminished because we try to put everything on the physical. That would be my biggest piece of advice, would be to address that mental component.
I agree. I agree too.
Mhm.
What if someone doesn't have insurance to cover it though? Because I've heard this discussion before when people talked about that, and people were saying if my insurance covered it, I would do it. Do you know of? Because you seem well versed in the
Mhm.
GLP-1
Yeah.
community. I'm not following people on Instagram and TikTok. I'm so
Yeah.
focused on YouTube. I'm not a big
Yeah.
social media lady, but now I'm going to
Yeah.
be. I'm going to
Good.
venture out because of you. But do you know of anything free things that, people could
Um,
try?
I mean, it's there are definitely things that you can there's a lot of information on the internet about intuitive eating. I know that there are podcasts out there about
Okay.
intuitive eating. There's podcasts out there about cognitive behavioral therapy. That was what I went through with my therapist earlier this year, and that's free. There's a lot of really interesting information out there about um, cognitive behavioral therapy and like learning how to understand what's going on in your brain and learning how to control what's going on in your brain instead of just being like beholden to whatever's going on up here, like being able to dissect our own emotions and thoughts and feelings and stuff like that. Um, I would say that because most people are going to have insurance of some kind because it's now a
Mhm.
requirement by the government. You know what I mean? Um, you're far better off finding a resource or a company like Nourish or Faye who will
Okay.
help to get, because the biggest problem is getting the insurance that you have to
To
cover
cover it.
something.
Yes.
Um, finding companies like that and companies like Friday's Health, where they have established departments that deal specifically with knowing the ins and outs of insurance and how to get them to cover the things that you're entitled to because you're paying for it. You know what I mean? So I would say that. But there's lots of free resources on the internet for different things like that. But yeah, cognitive behavioral therapy, intuitive eating, and then find telehealth resources to get your insurance to actually like to get help to get your insurance to actually cover things. Because I'm
Okay.
not familiar with the ins and outs of the coding and all of that stuff, but I've found companies that have helped me to get that coverage. So,
Thank you. Thank you. Well,
mhm.
give your channel a shout out because we're all subscribing to your channel.
I know.
We enjoy
Yeah,
talking to you.
you can just search my name. You can also do it's
Uh,
at Mindy P weight loss, all one word. So like
at Mindy
youtube.com
P Weight
slash
Loss.
at Mindy P weight loss.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, those are where you can find my channel. But I've been documenting my journey for over 3 years now. My content looks very different now than it did in the beginning because in the beginning I was just doing YouTube full time. I was doing 60 to 80 hours a week of filming and editing.
Wow.
But now I have a job, so I can't do that anymore. So
And
I
I
do what I
wanted to
can.
I wanted to tell you too, just from somebody, even though I started a YouTube channel, I still am watching people,
Mhm.
and I seeing those roller coasters because I've even debated about this. And I remember one of your videos you talked about not losing weight and maybe feeling like feeling like you disappointed your watchers because
Mhm.
you're not losing. Well, a real weight loss journey, and I felt that too. And I had to remind myself, a real weight loss journey, most people, now I had a girl on my show the other day who lost continuously, but most
Mhm.
people don't have that experience. Most people
It looks
have
like this.
ups and downs. It's like a roller
Mhm.
coaster. And so I would say to you, that's what people want to see because I always say people love flawed people because we're all flawed. You see
Absolutely.
yourself in someone else. When you do those
Mhm.
binging, videos, we binge, so we get it. We can relate to you.
Mhm.
When you don't stay on track, we get that. So we want to see that. And that's a reminder for myself too, and I do that to myself. I say, oh, I'm not going to record this week because I didn't lose. But really, that's what people can relate to because
Yeah.
everybody's been there. So I would just say,
Yeah.
keep that going. You just be you. You are great. You're looking fabulous. And I'm going to have you
Thank
back
you.
when you lose that 70. Your goal is to lose 70 more. When you lose 70 more, then when you lose 50, we're really going to celebrate because you're going to be 50 and even more fabulous.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. I learned so much and have a great day. I appreciate you interviewing with me. I
You
loved it. People are
too.
going to benefit from this. I mean, you were dropping some real gems here. I just can't wait to share it. So thank you. Have a good day.
You too. I'll see you later.
Bye bye.
Bye.